So I was flying home from Puerto Rico a couple weeks ago, and I witnessed something pretty damn hilarious, and that was somebody disorderly getting kicked off the plane. Now, naturally, thinking, I don't know what's gonna happen next, I start recording it. Maybe I'm gonna get a viral clip, who knows? Nothing that dramatic happened, but I came up with the idea of what if I made a entire track out of just this sample of someone getting kicked off the plane. No samples at all, no kicks, no snares, no percussive elements, no synthesizers, nothing. We are gonna make an entire track just off this audio clip of this guy getting kicked off the plane. Let's see if we can do it. Before we hop into the video, quick announcement for you guys. I recently dropped a super fire complete start to finish music production course. It's designed to give you every single tool you're ever gonna need to produce professional quality music in 30 days, either if you're totally brand new or if you've been producing for a while but you're just struggling to get your sound to the next level. It's over 17 hours of content distributed over 30 days of learning. We also have a super fire community where you can hop in and ask questions, free monthly sample packs, all kinds of cool stuff. Also, we've recently worked out a deal where if you sign up for the course, we can actually give you guys educational discounts on Ableton Live, FabFilter, Isotope, Sound Toys, Kilohertz, Arturia, and Output. So you could literally save thousands of dollars. And as of right now, the course is on sale, so it costs less than dinner. So definitely worth it, definitely worth checking out. Let's get into the video. All right, so here's the original video. I'm just gonna go ahead and link this entire project in the description for free so you guys can hop in and take a look at it. Sometimes it's helpful to kind of see what other producers are doing and dissect projects and whatnot. So the finished project will be available in a link in the download description. So here's the original video.
Yes.
I didn't do anything.
She said you was offensive with her.
I was offensive?
Yes, and you cannot take this like.
Ask anyone. I was not offensive to anyone.
She say that?
How she has proof?
No.
No, where is her proof? She
Hold
said,
on.
If you're traveling together, you can get off the plane together, but you cannot take the flight.
So how would you like me to get
I'm
home?
sorry. So
Bro, I wish they would have asked me because that dude was being obnoxious. He was like playing a PSP and they asked him to like turn down the volume and he was like arguing with them. It's like, bro, what are you doing? Anyway, let's get into some sampling of this video. So you may or may not know this, but you can actually drag a video directly into Ableton Live. It will play the video. It will also convert it to an audio clip if you need it. So that's basically what I did. I just literally drug the video right into Ableton. And now I'm going to start looking for little bits we can sample.
Ask anyone. I was not offensive to anyone.
she say that?
how she has proof?
No.
Proof?
No.
No, where is her proof? She
Hold
said,
on.
If you're traveling together, you can get off the plane together, but you cannot take the flight.
So how would you like me to
I'm
get home?
sorry. So
A little baby noise right there.
So
Yep.
so you was
So right now what I'm doing is I'm just dragging it into a simpler. So this is really going to show you guys that you can really make drums out of like any sound. Right now we're going to go for a kick drum. So we're going to kind of isolate a little piece of audio and we are going to process it until it sounds like a polished kick. So let's see if we can do it. Volume up. Play with the ADSR a little bit. Filter out the highs. Boom, we're like halfway there. Watch, we'll make it sound dope. So the one of the fundamental frequencies of a kick is like the 250 hertz range is kind of like the thud and the punch of a kick. So we're going to boost that a little bit. It'll kind of bring out more kick-like characteristics. OTT, so OTT is a multi-band compressor, and we're going to use it to basically just like bring out all the loudness of this, shape it a little bit with the low, mids, and highs. There we go. Get some bass going in there. Little glue compression, kind of shape the transient a little bit, dial it in. Get into some resampling. So now, yeah, now we're going to isolate this click, and we're going to use this probably for a lot of stuff. Initially, I was thinking like for a layer, a little click layer for the kick, but this will work. Like we could use that for this for our snare, for our hats, whatever we want. Again, with some glue compression. Just playing it with the kick. Little saturation. This is the new Ableton Live 12 saturator. Little analog clip. Get a little clipping on it. Look at that beefy transient right there. Like that's a kick. That's a good kick. Super compressed, but it's kind of how I like them. Now this is kind of a cheat code for sounds like this, and basically what we're going to do is we're going to pull a sub bass out of the kick. So drum bus, I love this stock Ableton device. Basically we can pick what sub frequency we want to pull out of it and then increase the boom, and we're going to get like a really good sounding sub bass, honestly. Boom is kind of like decay, I guess you could say. And you'll notice once you move the frequency, that little box in the bottom over here, this is going to change. So it's going to tell you the fundamental frequency of what sub bass, what sub note you're pulling out. It's pretty fat. Toss a limiter on it. Some erosion, some wide noise. Make that sub a little fuzzy. Now let's get a little kick pattern going. So it sounds pretty weak right now, but we'll definitely shape this to where it's a pretty good sounding snare. So this is a new device to Ableton Live 12, and it's called Drum Sampler, and I really like it a lot. It basically allows you to shape and affect drums in a multitude of pretty cool ways, and it kind of gives you like an XY axis for effects. Perfect for shaping and kind of affecting a snare. So again, attack, hold, decay. Once again, it's in a simpler, so we're just gonna... Now we're going to toss some convolution reverb on it to give it kind of like a big sound. For those of you who are unfamiliar with convolution reverb, it is free. It's on the Ableton website, so it doesn't come in Ableton, but you can go and grab it for free. And basically the difference between convolution reverb and regular reverb is convolution is made to emulate the reverberations of real life places. So for instance, like a cathedral or a stadium or a room or whatever. I tend to pick convolution reverb over the Ableton stock reverb quite a bit. Really helps you kind of like paint the picture for the listeners. So I'm probably going to use this a couple times in this track. Scoop out some of the lows. You don't really need the lows of the reverb. Experiment with a couple different kinds. Nice transient heavy snare. And now this little transient we have here, we're going to use this as a percussive element. The like 8th or 16th note hat gets super boring and super redundant and repetitive. So what I like to do is I like to set every other one on a new track, and I make them slightly different and kind of like warp the length and the volume and the pitch and all that, and it gives it a nice like shuffle, and it keeps it moving very nicely. So I'll show you what I mean right here. So this one, let's grab it, and yeah, let's make the first one a little bit longer. See how it has that nice bounce now? So what I'm doing here is I'm taking the snare we made and I'm going to shape it into like a hi-hat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a lot more transient and heavy. So I'm going to take away some of the body like I'm doing here with the fade. And then I'm going to EQ it and cut and boost certain frequencies. That's going to give it that like top end hi-hat kind of sound. So yeah, just crank the air. So crank the high frequencies, chop out all the lows, add some erosion. Now we have that nice like sibilance, Piercy hat perk range here. Mess with the pitch a little bit. Yeah, we'll use these for like some rolls. Limit them. So what you're about to see me do is a really cool trick that I do pretty much every single track I make on some percussive element, and that's the Haas effect. So what the Haas effect is it's actually a delay, and what it's doing, it's delaying one side of the stereo field milliseconds from the other. So what that's doing is you could actually take a mono signal and put the Haas effect on it, and what it's going to do is it's going to completely open up the sound. It's going to push it on the very far sides of the stereo spectrum and give you like a very nice stereo image and width to your percussive elements. And typically we like our higher elements pushed further out to the sides. Because of that, it's going to totally push this out to the side, and then it's going to make more room in the middle of the stereo field for our vocals or our drums or whatever we're doing, our instruments. Little panning. I like this little vocal chop of the flight attendant. So this is a cool little trick producer John Casey taught me, and that is using grain delay. So basically in this track, all we really have is like a raw audio clip. And we're going to have to do some processing to like make it so not everything sounds like just a clip from like a raw like audio recording. So we want to add like some elements that are going to make stuff sound like robotic, like in a sense of like metallic. And one way to do that is with a grain delay. So that's what I'm going to do here. So it's giving it movement, and it's giving like a cool metallic kind of sound. Chop out the lows. So dampening the highs like I did there with the EQ, that's going to push this back a little bit. We don't really want it like in the front with everything. It's going to push it back and make it sound further away, and that's because the further something is away, the less we hear the higher frequencies. So that's kind of what I'm doing there, is I'm pushing this away and pushing it back in the mix a little bit with that EQ move. Once again, convolution reverb, again, pushing it back, adding some reverberations. This is a really cool auto pan effect. It's called Around the Head, and it really does make stuff sound like it's moving around your head. So again, some stereo image movement. Grab some more audio clips here, toss this in the sampler. So now we're in the phase where we're going to start wanting to add some instruments, and we're going to do this trick probably a couple times you're going to see me do, where we can basically take any sound and turn it into an instrument. And we're going to do that by looping the sample, a short wavelength of it in a simpler. Let me show you what I mean here. So we have this little piece, and if you see under sustain mode right there, we have those arrows going both ways, and what that's doing is it's going up and then back. So it's not necessarily looping, but it's going back and forth over a certain wave, like a certain spot in the sample. And the closer it gets together, the more it's going to sound like a synth, because all a synth really is a waveform, and that's all we see here. It's just like a longer one that we would typically work with. It's going to sound out of tune and a little crappy at first, but we will get it there. We just got to get the sound first. So a little saturated, a little analog clip, and then another one I'm going to be using a little bit is Corpus. So this Ableton device basically emulates like sounds from percussive elements and pipes and metal and stuff like that, and gives things like a kind of different texture. So again, trying to veer away from the fact that everything in here is from like a low quality audio sample. Add some flavor to it, so we're doing some pitch bends. And by the way, for those of you who aren't really familiar with theory, I'm not going to do anything too crazy in this track. All this is literally a half step. So it's a half step from one key to the next. And this isn't really part of any native scale. It's not part of like the major or minor scale, but it's something that's used frequently in trap music, and it has that really like trappy kind of like brass sound to it, like the brass, like the dun, like the Jaws kind of move. So that's all I did here. Nothing special or crazy. Filter movement's a huge one. So you'll see me doing a lot of stuff in here that is basically just trying to keep stuff interesting. Like the little pitch bends in there. They're not super dramatic, but like anything we can do that's going to keep stuff moving and keep it from giving the listener ear fatigue by playing the same thing over and over again, we're going to do. So in this case, we're going to introduce an auto filter, and we're just going to do some filter movements over this little... So now we're going to start introducing some sidechain compression. A little refresher for those of you who are unfamiliar with sidechain compression. Basically what I'm doing is I'm going to use the signal of the kick to tell the synth when to turn down. It's a very common technique in music production. Basically we want stuff, it's mainly used for kick and bass relationships, because when your kick and your sub bass are playing at the same time, they're competing in a frequency range. And what that's going to do is they're going to sum up, and they're going to cause problems for us, because it's going to make us clip. It's going to make everything louder than we want it. We want to make room for some things when other things are coming in, but not all the time, just when they're hitting. That's where sidechain compression comes in. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell this synth, hey, whenever this kick plays, let's turn you down a little bit. It's also going to give it a nice pumping effect and kind of like emphasize the kick here. Sometimes sidechain compression is great. Sometimes you literally just want to go with good old-fashioned volume automation. And that's when we'll grab a utility And all we're going to do is automate it manually to turn down every time the kick hits. It's just kind of like a different sound. It's more aggressive, more control. So that's what we're going to do in this situation.
Ask anyone. Anyone.
So now let's get some actual like vocal, like we've pretty much done everything except use the actual vocal like in its natural form. So now let's get like, so let's use this vocal to like do some funny shit.
Ask anyone. Ask anyone.
So here's a little tip when warping vocals. Always use Complex Pro. The reason for this is because we can not only manipulate the pitch, but also the formant. And the manipulation of pitch and the manipulation of formant is what can give you those really clean, like octave up or octave down vocal pitches. So if you're in Ableton and you can't figure out why you can't get that like vocal pitching sound, it's probably this. So I'm going to pitch this down and then I'm going to play with the formant until it sounds the way I want it to sound.
Ask anyone. 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 Ask anyone.
Redux is a bit crusher. We're going to downgrade the quality of this audio sample a little bit.
Ask anyone. Ask anyone. Ask anyone.
And convolution reverb. We'll do a little throw on this one, like throw it out, basically.
Ask anyone. Ask anyone. Ask anyone. Ask anyone. Ask anyone.
So that's pretty cool, but I think we need like an echo out, like a delay. We could use a delay module or delay device, which would be the easy and practical way to go. But a lot of the times what I like to do with like the echo out kind of deal is just do them manually because, again, it gives us more control. And yeah, it'll sound cool. So let's do that. So that's pretty cool. Now let's chop up some more vocals. So I will spare you the warping details on this one because it's very not fun. But I will tell you that if you take a vocal and you warp it in beats mode, you can get a really cool choppy kind of effect because when you warp in beats mode, it uses your transient to judge how to warp by. So if you're warping like drums, you wouldn't want to like stretch out the transients, right? Like you wouldn't want to like flatten out your kick or snare. So in order to do like to stretch it while preserving the transients, that's what beats mode is for. If you put this little arrow here under 1/16 going to the right, and then you slowly reduce it, you're gonna get like a choppy, bouncy kind of effect, and that's what I'm doing here. We'll go with the spectral resonator. This one is relatively newer in Ableton as well. Gives you a really cool kind of robotic effect. So we'll do that. So all I did here is I duplicated the track we were doing like the synth run for. I'm going to try to create another layer out of it to give us a little bit more texture. So what I did is I moved, everything is the same. I'm just moving where the sample starts and stops to a different point. A really important thing to remember in with production in general is everything you do is not always going to work out. Sometimes, even though you sat there and tweaked on it for an hour, toss it if it's not working out. You know, that's kind of like a big lesson to learn here. Is there's been times in this track where I've just deleted it, you know, out of the video that I was tweaking on one sound trying to get it perfect, and after 30 minutes, I'm like, not working. I'm gonna delete it. So Just thought I'd throw that out there. So we got that sound, and now I'm gonna kind of like run some chords through it. Like I was saying, I'm not really gonna get into any theory here, but I will say in Ableton Live 12, we do have this feature at the top where it allows us to lock our project to a key, meaning it's gonna show us the notes in our piano roll that are within the key we're working with, which is super helpful. So you don't need to know anything about music theory to see where the purple lines are and pencil in on the purple lines. And all we're going here for is like a triad, which is like a chord of 1, 2, like a 3 stack. And we're going to see if we can kind of make like a cool little higher layer to the synth with it.
Take this life. You cannot take this life.
So all I did here is I found a little like vocal chop. I didn't want to play, do all that again because it's redundant. I just grabbed a little piece and I made an arpeggiated series of notes, just simply playing the simpler. I'm just using MIDI here, just using pre-made MIDI. Try vocoder on this one.
I didn't do anything.
So beat's looking decent. Now let's do like a little like intro part that like foreshadows the fact of what this track is. So we're just gonna like play a part of the audio sample and maybe like put some spatial effects on it so it sounds all big and mysterious.
Said it was offensive with her.
It was offensive?
Yeah. You cannot take this life.
Ask anyone. I was not offensive to anyone.
Yes.
I didn't do anything.
She said it was offensive with her.
It was offensive?
Yeah. You cannot take this life.
Ask anyone. I was not offensive to anyone.
You say that?
Now I'm just going to add some variations in the drum because once again, we want to keep things interesting. We don't want to give the listener the same thing over and over again. So, some kick shuffles, some snare shuffles, that kind of stuff.
Yes.
I didn't do anything.
She said it was offensive with her.
It was offensive?
Yeah. You cannot take this life.
Ask anyone. Ask anyone.
Take this life.
That's pretty much it. It's not a banger. It's not the best track you've ever heard. But considering this was all made from one very simple, like very raw, bad audio recording, this really should go to like showcase the power of sound design and processing. Like we literally went from like some raw audio, like iPhone recording to like a decent sounding beat, I guess. I would consider it decent. So thank you guys for watching. Again, I'll link this in the description and I will see you next time.
More